Now, this is the portrait introduction. Now, why is it an introduction? Because it's to explain basically things that I don't want to repeat in every lesson on portraits, because I'm going to be doing 7 or 8 different ones with different styles of portraits. We're now in December 2011. By tomorrow there'll be the first lesson, which is on mid-key portrait. We'll be doing high key, low key, film star stuff, like Hollywood pictures. We'll try and cover every type of portrait. Now, it's important that you look at the rest of this video, because there are tips and tricks, well, not tips and tricks, but there are things that you must know and must realise about portrait photography. So I hope it won't be too boring. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show any photographs. It's a bit like a photo school lecture or an art school lecture. This is the type of thing you get when you go to art school. So I'm going to take up 10 minutes of your time, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, whether it's a commercial or a job with friends, the same thing applies, and this is incredibly important, and that is you are insured. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's take an example that you've got someone in your studio and a light falls on them. Now, you could end up with a very big lawsuit, so you must be insured. Now, I know a lot of photographers do this on the side. It doesn't change anything. You must be insured. This is one of the reasons that the professional photographer is more expensive than the amateur. It's just that you have to pay their insurance. Bear in mind as well, and this goes for all types of photography, that it's now become clear that if you're using your car for work, you must inform your insurance company. Now, that is incredibly important as well. So transporting equipment, transporting models, anything to do with work in your car, you must be insured. Now on to something a bit more fun, a bit more, well, not fun but interesting. It's important. I've got a few notes here, so I might refer to those from time to time. Now, it's important to discuss, if you're going to do a portrait job, discuss with your subject what type of photograph they want. I mean, they might want high key, low key, etc, etc. Don't decide on the day. It makes life very, very difficult. You must be prepared. You must have thought about it, how you're going to light it, how you're going to go about it. Maybe you've done a test with somebody else, with your wife or boyfriend or whatever. Why did I say boyfriend instead of husband? Anyway, so that's important. Another thing is, how do you dress? Well, you want everyone to be relaxed, so you don't wear a suit and tie. Unless, of course, you're meeting the king or queen, if you're photographing royalty, but I presume you won't be watching these videos if you're doing it. Now, I'll give you an example. I met the king of the Belgians, as he was called once, and I treated him rather familiarly, in a familiar manner. Not that sort of familiar manner. Now, in French, which is the language we were using, there are 2 ways of addressing someone, and I addressed him a bit like saying, "Hi mate," which didn't go down very well, but his reply was, "You're English, I presume." Another incredibly important thing, and it really is important, is to get your model relaxed. Now, you're not going to get her relaxed if you're in a bad mood. Her, I say her, it could be a him. If you're in a bad mood, so get out of that bad mood. It's not their problem, they're paying you to take a picture. You must be humorous, you must get them totally relaxed. Now, the best way of doing that is to sit down with them, have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, glass of wine, but not at 10 o'clock in the morning, get your bad reputation. So that way you can chat with them, and while you're doing that, have a look at their expressions, because that's what you're trying to get. In a portrait photograph, you must try and get those expressions that people look at and say, "Oh yes, that's really that person." What should you have ready? Well, I can guarantee you they'll never come dressed as they should have come dressed. They'll have invented something at the last minute that their auntie bought them for Christmas, and they want to be wearing that. Well, have a stock of clothes, have a stock of scarves, because if they've got something, a nasty looking shoulder, and they're sort of posing like that, then what you must have, oh, squeaky chair again, what they must have, what you must have, are something to cover it. So a nice bit of material or something, always have that lying around the studio. So scarves, maybe a funny little hat, all sorts of things. For a man, make sure you've got a couple of shirts hanging by, because he'll come by, he'll tell you he wants a shot, for example on a white background, and be wearing a shirt that doesn't go at all with a white background, so make sure you've got a few things lying around. Makeup, a little bit, not a lot, you don't need to keep a lot, but particularly powder, just to put on the shiny bits, because it's difficult to retouch, and it's just professional to go about it that way. So a powder, a brush, just to put it on. Now hairbrush, always have a hairbrush, but make sure you've washed it, make sure it looks ultra clean. As soon as it starts looking a bit used, throw it away, get another one, they don't cost anything. Right, now how do we treat a model? Male or female makes not a lot of difference. Well, with humour, with respect. Now never start touchy-feely a model, unless you have permission of course. What else? Well, don't be alone, that's obvious. If you're shooting someone certainly under 18, don't be alone with them. In this day and age, all that's very difficult, very dangerous. It's a shame, but that's the way it is. Now another thing I'd advise is not to show them photographs that you've taken while you're shooting. Now there can be reasons that you will. For example, you really want to make a point that they're doing something repetitively, and I'll give you a funny example about this, and that's, for example, my golf swing. Beautiful as it is. I never believed that it was quite as ugly as it looked until my golf pro did a video and showed it to me. And then I realised what was wrong. So maybe from time to time you have to show a model a photograph. So sometimes it can be useful. You'll find on some occasions that models won't like their picture because they'll say, "That's not me," whereas their friends will say, "Yes, it is." Don't forget that every morning they look in a mirror, they're seeing a mirror image, and it's very easy to prove to them that you're right because you just flip an image on the computer and show it to them. And they might be surprised because if they're not used to seeing photographs of themselves, they're only used to seeing a mirror. Now let's have a think about retouching. A lot of people want retouching, a lot of people don't. Now take the example that someone might have a scar on their forehead. Now before just going ahead and retouching it, ask them. Again, they've seen it, all their friends have seen it, why go into retouching that is not really them? So make sure, sometimes you have to be a bit diplomatic about the question, as you can imagine, but talk to them about it and see how far they'd like. Nothing more unprofessional than having a telephone ring during a session. You've got this lovely contact going, very important, you've got she's having a cup of tea from time to time, or because a good session will last a couple of hours. And your telephone doesn't stop ringing. It breaks the contact between you and the model. So make sure you've got that solved. Gets either someone answering the phone for you, or make sure it's on engaged or just turned off. And the same thing goes for the model. Ask them to do the same thing. It's a sign of respect. Right, now if you're using, let's get on to equipment. What are you going to need? I mean, it's a bit sort of more interesting. We're obviously going to need a table, because it's so nice if you're photographing someone that they can move around, over the shoulder look. So it's also the chair that rises up and down. That's always very useful. That gets a smile too with kids. A chair that revolves. Now those are posing chairs, but I mean I've just got a kitchen stool or something I bought very cheaply. A table that will move up and down. You've seen that in some of my other videos. I've at last found one, and I've got one on the shop, or in fact two on the shop, between 18 and 30 euro I think, or 20 quid. Very useful for all sorts of things, that's still life, etc. Now about lighting. Any lighting will do as long as you can get a fast enough shutter speed. This, for example, that I've got now are halogen lights for the video. I've got one as a clip light. Now that's called a clip light, that's why it's there, so I can show you what it's called. And the main light, now I've got a 1000 watt and a 500 watt there. Now, normally I'd use flash, of course, but any light source works. A camera's always handy. Use a longer lens, say let's say 100, 110 mils, perfect. You can get away with an 80 or 90, but keep away from anything shorter. You don't want to get the face looking odd. Oh, well, I hope I didn't bore you too much with all that. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck with your portraits. Don't forget to look at all the lessons, because I'm sure they'll help you. Bye.